Alright guys, before we start the actual stream, I want to check out this video by Eric Rayweather. It says 5 things that won't work anymore in Madden.
When Madden 24 drops in a couple of weeks, you might be surprised that some popular tactics from last year and previous years simply will not work.
Let me see if my audio's right. My auto should be right. Let's do this.
Anymore. That's because every year EA tries to previous years simply will not work anymore. That's because every year EA tries to attack what they call the meta, the things that are the most popular and the most effective, and they try to neutralize them and make them more balanced. So these 5 things we're about to go over, if you're used to using them in previous games, don't be surprised when they no longer work when you start playing Madden 24. Number 1, right out of the gate, we have to talk about high ball passes. Now, if you played Madden 23 on the newer generations of consoles, you know just how popular and overpowered high ball passing was. They were never inaccurate. They always gave you a much better chance to hold on to the ball, whether you were using it for an aggressive catch or a rack catch. You pretty much wanted to high ball the majority of your pass.
But they already fixed this with Madden 23. It's where like if you catch the ball, their hand would get zapped or something, and they would just the ball would immediately fall out of their hands. They already fixed it, but I don't know.
Passes because it usually puts
even
the
when
ball
they're wide open,
the
it does that. It's
never
like
had
so
a chance
dumb
to make a play on it, whereas if you threw a regular pass, it would be more of a 50-50. Now, there's nothing wrong with high passes being effective, but they were just way too effective in the way that they worked in Madden 23, and they never truly got balanced. Well, going into Madden 24, they have completely neutralized this, and we saw this with the gameplay that was just recently released. The pro players were trying to throw a lot of high passes as they would in the previous game, and while some of them were still completed as they should be, the majority of them were knocked out by the defender, or sometimes even just flat out dropped, because a high pass does require a different degree of difficulty. So going into Madden 24, if you're gonna use the high pass, you really want to make sure that you have a decent amount of separation on the defender, and you're throwing it to a tall guy, preferably maybe into the back of the end zone or something like that. But if you want to high ball passes in the seams every play, or try to high ball rack catch a play down the sideline, it's probably not going to be too beneficial to do that anymore, because they definitely made an emphasis on these being a little bit more 50-50.
Now I don't like that. I literally
that the DBs have different animations where they can go up and play the high pass to knock it out.
The defensive.
Now really quickly, I do want to mention that we are once again sponsored of the sport money, like plenty of different deposit up to money and have fun plays over and over. This is because EA added something known as adaptive AI for the run defense. Now this does not apply to pass defense.
This is what I mostly do whenever I would play Madden, because I just like running the game. Running with like X Factor players. Oh my gosh. X Factor's Derrick Henry, and they're called AKA players. They were called AKA players, and they were unstoppable. It was Derrick Henry and the Quad Father. AJ,
maybe in the future they'll do it, but for now they're starting with run defense. Now we learned about this when they dropped the gameplay notes about a month ago, but then we also saw an example of this in the new gameplay video that they released shortly ago. We saw one of the players running a toss play a couple of times in a row to good success, and with run blocking being much improved this year, I do expect the run game to be better, but you're gonna have to mix it up a little bit more, because on the 3rd time when the player tried the same toss play, you'll notice that the linebacker reacts much faster to the run and is able to get to the running back and limit the amount of yards he gets. That's because when you're running the same play over and over, these linebackers and these safeties and just defenders in general are going to attack the play much faster, and they're no longer gonna do their read and react portion of the play. So on a typical play, these players have to read and react to try to diagnose what's going on. You're rarely gonna see a player just immediately make a beeline for something, because they want to try to diagnose for a split second what's actually developing. However, we do see in in the NFL, smart players, when they know what's coming, they do react right away because you're giving a tell. Well, in terms of adaptive AI, there's a tell within the game for the CPU defenders that, hey, they're likely running this same run play once again, whether it be a toss, a stretch, an inside zone, and they're going to attack the play immediately instead of reading and reacting. So if you want to run the ball, you're going to have to mix it up and no longer rely on the same 1 or 2 plays anymore. Hey, if you're still here at this point of the video and you're not subscribed, you might as well be updated with all of the help, and it would be great. A thing that, depending on how you play the game, you might look at it differently, but aggressive catches were really overpowered last year on the newer consoles if you knew how to trigger them. If you didn't know how to trigger them, you probably would think that aggressive catches still weren't very good, but in fact, they were super overpowered, especially with taller receivers and tight ends. You could get them almost every play, and for a certain portion of the year, it was literally people's entire offense. Just have streaks on the field, throw a certain high ball, go up and catch the ball, and the defenders would kind of dumb out or just not really be able to get the correct animation.
But then again, people on the defensive side will have like KO, so like it will not work most of the time.
To play the receiver or the ball.
Oh my gosh.
Much like high passes, which we talked about earlier, they have definitely balanced this a lot better this year. You're no longer going to be able to just throw up a 50-50 ball and get like an 80 to 90% guarantee on the catch. You can still get them sometimes. It should be 50-50. Now, whether they overcorrected and made it more like 30-70, we don't really know that quite yet, but we do know it's not going to be nearly as powerful as it was last year, which I think is good because when high balling and aggressive catching are so good to where that can be the majority of your offense, that's when you know it's going a little too far. It should be something that's used situationally and have some risk / reward to it. Last year, there was not enough risk to it, especially with the fact that defenders would not catch the tipped passes very consistently. So even if you did get an incomplete pass or a knockout, you didn't really have much chance to get the interception on it, and that's what made it almost no risk to throwing. This year, there's going to be more risk, there's going to be more interceptions, there's going to be more drops when trying to aggressive catch. Number 4, corner routes versus man defense. Now, last year we saw man defense be the meta. It was very powerful, and I think man defense is still going to be pretty solid this year. Not as good as last year based on what we've seen, but it's still going to be viable, which it should be. However, the one thing that really did a good job against man defense last year were certain corner routes, like in the play bench or the hot routed corner routes that you can get by having a hot route master QB or a slot apprentice wide receiver. Those corner routes are not as automatic versus man defense anymore, at least based on what I have played. Of course, a corner route can still beat man sometimes, especially if you have a good receiver, but it's not as automatic as it was last year. If you knew how to time the corner routes last year, you could get them open versus man defense pretty much every single time. That's just not going to be the case this year. Like a lot of other things in this year's game, you're going to have more of a 50-50 aspect to it. I'm sure somebody will find the 1 or 2 corner routes in the game that are still good, but just on average, corner routes are not going to be just an automatic win versus man defense anymore. Number 5, the gun tight meta. This is not going to work on the same level that it did in Madden 23, and one of the main reasons this was so popular in Madden 23 is because man defense was the defensive meta, and gun tight is just a very good formation at attacking man defense. But when
most likely I'm gonna be using just man defense. I don't really like running zone. I don't know why. Just doesn't work for me.
You consider that corner routes don't beat man as consistently as they did last year, which we just talked about. When you also factor in that man press is no longer as dominant as it was in Madden 23, so more people.
And by the way, this if you play Madden, you know that this formation is the most annoyingest formation to go against.
Are going to switch to zone. I don't think you're going to see the tight meta be nearly as effective as it was in Madden 23. But also, one of the biggest factors in the tight meta is that gun tight was removed from most playbooks. There's only maybe 1 or 2 playbooks that still have the good gun tight formations or the tight offset formations. Now, there are a lot of tight formations in the game in general, but they're different variations of gun tight. They're like gun tight Y off or something like that. And while those formations are still decent, they're not nearly as good as the plain Jane gun tight or the gun tight offset tight end, which have been kind of nuked from most playbooks in the game. So even if you want to run this, there's just not a lot of playbooks that give you that opportunity, so it's not going to be something that people are going to want to gravitate towards in Madden 24. And for an honorable mention, I want to throw in easily containing mobile quarterbacks. Last year it was super easy to contain mobile QBs. You didn't even really have to do much. Mobile QBs just weren't really even that much of a thing in Madden 23. They've definitely fixed this. QBs
Yeah, I
can get
know.
out of the pocket better this year. The plain old D-line is not just going to automatically contain or get after him.
The only good thing is that about mobile QBs is you have to be using Ravens playbook, a play called QB wrap, and that was the only good play that you could really use. Other than that, like the QB will get like demolished easily.
Nearly as good as they did last year.
People
You're going
wouldn't
to have
really
to
run
use
with
proper
Lamar or Michael Vick.
containing strategies to contain QBs this year. So if you're used to QBs just not really getting out of the pocket and being that effective from last year, they're going to be a lot more effective this year. So you're going to have to kind of relearn how to properly contain mobile QBs instead of just kind of setting a defense and forgetting it. Now, if you want to see more of the Madden 24...
No. Alright guys, hopefully y'all did enjoy that one. I think Madden's like 2 weeks away now. 2 weeks or 1 week. But I will see y'all when it drops. I definitely will play it. Peace out guys.